Hi everyone, it's me, Sandy Cruz of Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. For years now, I've been bringing to you conversations about wellness from experts from all over the world. Whether it be suggestions in how you can age better, biohacking, alternative wellness, these are conversations to help you live your best life. I want to live a long, healthy, and vibrant life. Never mind all those stigmas that as we reach midlife and beyond, we're just going to shrivel up and die with some horrible disease. Always remember, balanced living works. I really look forward to this season. Hi everyone, welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have a return guest. His name is Michael Rubino, and Michael is the head of a company called Home Cleanse. And he has quite the following. I mean, he's been on the Goop podcast. He has been all over Forbes, Today, Business Insider, you name it. And he's coming on again to talk to us about mold. This is a big deal, you guys. And he's going to tell us everything we need to know about the warning signs, the things to look out for, the things to keep our home clean and clear of mold and toxins. So definitely listen to this entire podcast and please be sure to share this. It is jam-packed full of information. Also, I would really appreciate it if you give me a rating and a review with a few kind words. It just helps me to keep bringing amazing guests and amazing topics to you each and every week. My Essential Thyroid Guide is out. It's been out since March. You can get it anywhere on any Amazon store. It's just called The Essential Guide, and that's exactly what it is. It's actually 53 pages, I think, in total. And it's a very simplified guide for those of you who are just not into these 200-page clinical books, just to help you be proactive and take care of your thyroid from all aspects. We're talking body, mind, spirit, soul, because the thyroid, remember, it is the master gland. And there are many aspects of wellness that tie to the health of your thyroid. So grab it. It's available everywhere on Amazon. I started my Substack. So for those of you who are not sure what I keep saying it wrong, Substack is, it is for writers and journalists, and I love it there. And what I am doing with my Substack is I am including many critical analysis essays on wellness, my essays, that will be part of my new book. And in the fall, I'm meeting back up with my developmental editor. I met with her just about a week ago. We talked about the premise of this book. It's finally going to be in its full creation stages, and we'll get to that literary agent and hopefully in a publisher's hands sooner than later. So join my Substack now, because you're going to get a sneak peek on a bunch of the really cool essays that I have written that will be contributing to my new book. Just go to Sandy Cruz, SandyKruse.substack.com and join me. Follow me on all of my social media platforms. It's Sandy K Nutrition everywhere. You can watch this entire interview in its raw format on YouTube, or you can watch it on Rumble. And one thing to note, this summer, what I'm doing is I'm bringing back my summer reboot series. A lot of people, I polled a bunch of my audience on Instagram, they really like the idea of bringing back episodes that were very popular from the past to the forefront for my summer reboot series. That's happening August 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th. Now, be sure that you're following me wherever you listen to this podcast so that you don't miss it and it gets delivered straight to your podcasting platform where you listen. So on August 5th, I've never published this. I'm calling it a summer reboot episode because I didn't publish it. There were some editing challenges. It is a live interview with Dr. Nathan Bryan all about nitric oxide and its importance. It was a live interview that I had done at the Biohackers World Conference in, I think it was 2023. So I'm bringing that to you on August 5th. August 12th, Dr. Doug Lucas, all about osteoporosis. And if you guys are following me on Instagram, you know that I have helped my mother reverse osteoporosis. And at this point now, it's crazy, you guys. She is 78 years old, and now in her hip, she has the exact same T-score as she had when she was 53. I'm not kidding you. So you're going to want to listen to this one with Dr. Doug Lucas. He gives so much valuable information all about osteoporosis. August 19th, I have Dr. William Davis. He's going to be talking all about cholesterol. Is it really that LDL? You're going to have to listen and find out. And then on August 26th, I've got Dr. Dale Bredesen all about reversing Alzheimer's disease. These were amazing episodes, and I hope you share them with any of your friends who might be interested in this. Now, the other thing I want to note is this fall, I'm planning to release a sister podcast. It's called Sandy K Gen X Unplugged, Bringing Balance Back to the World. And it does sort of tie along with Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen podcast, except it's a little bit more opinionated, critical thinking, analysis of really all kinds of things that are going on in our world that just seem to be so imbalanced. So follow me on all my socials and definitely share this episode. Now let's cut on through to this conversation with Michael Rubino. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have Michael Rubino, and he is actually a return guest. And Michael is an air quality expert and wellness advocate who is bridging the gap between our homes and the direct impact on health. He's the founder of Home Cleanse, a company dedicated to addressing the worldwide health epidemic caused by poor air quality. He works closely with the company's advisory team, which includes global well-being trailblazers Deepak Chopra's The Chopra Foundation and Gwyneth Paltrow to achieve the company's mission to improve the quality of life for 100 million people each year by 2030. Rubino is also the founder of Change the Air Foundation, a nonprofit committed to empowering the world to achieve better health by establishing safer and healthier indoor environments. And today we are going to talk all about the air you breathe. Is your home hurting you and your family? We're going to get all the answers we need today with expert Michael Rubino. So with that, welcome, Michael.
Thank you. And it's such an honor to be on here for a second time.
Yeah, I was really happy to have you come back because a lot has been happening in your world since we first recorded. So why don't you give us a rundown of what's going on with your company and what you've been up to?
Yeah, so we rebranded to Home Cleanse since we last spoke and have pretty much launched this nationwide company helping people fix environmental problems inside their home, which has been attributing several health issues that they've been dealing with. And I've also launched that nonprofit that you mentioned called Change the Air Foundation. And we have already hit the ground running hard there. We have the Healthy at Home Act of 2023, which is the second indoor air quality bill to ever hit the federal government. And we just passed a committee hearing in Iowa to change one of the laws in Iowa around, the importance of indoor air quality. So we are fighting this new frontier in the government, trying to get them to recognize the importance of indoor air quality and help change laws to protect people living in these great states of the U.S. So that's been really exciting. We have a lot of research things coming out as well, hopefully by the end of this year, to really help establish, understanding of how air quality impacts our health a little bit more clearly. So that has been really exciting. Been on the Goop podcast with Gwyneth Paltrow talking about her own journey that I've been helping with. And it's writing my second book called Never Been Sicker, How Air Quality May Be the Missing Link for Better Health. So I think that sums up. There's probably a lot of other things I've done in between, but
it's pretty awesome because even as a practitioner, we all know that what happens a lot of times with people, they're doing everything right, and yet they're still sick. And the one thing they forget to look at, Michael, do you ever go by Michael?
You can call me Mike, Michael, whatever you prefer.
Well, I find that people will often not look at the environment in which they live. So let's get into that. Why is this such a big deal? Has this always been a problem and we just never really uncovered that there could be air quality issues within the home? Is it because our environment's changing? What's the deal?
Well, first off, it's definitely always been a problem. We tend to have amnesia when it comes to history. That's why history tends to repeat itself. But actually, literally, there's a mold removal protocol in the Leviticus in the Bible talking about how when they would deal with fungus in the home, they would come in, they would clean it, they would have a priest bless it. But if it came back, they literally would knock the house down and take these tainted stones away from the village. So we've known that it's been a problem for a very, very long time. But I would say in more recent modern times, it's just become this epidemic. And there's several reasons for this. One, we have this increase of natural disasters, right? It's increasing, seems to be more prevalent every year, becomes larger, more detrimental every year, and we don't really have a great cleanup plan in place. Actually, my entire career was born after the Hurricane Sandy in the Northeast that decimated tens of thousands of homes there. When we get also to the 1970s portion of our timeline here, Richard Nixon's in office, we start chasing energy efficiency because there was a global energy crisis. One of the main problems that was born out of that is we forgot that people live indoors. We are the indoor generation. Now, when they started doing all these spray foam and energy efficient homes, they didn't take into account the fact that there's going to be a less volume of air that we're going to be breathing, right? So with that limited volume of air, no air exchange, we're going to have anything that's in our environment, such as chemicals, mold, bacteria. It's going to increase the quantity per breath that we take, which is about 20,000 breaths per day. So we're getting into this circumstance here where too much air is being recycled, and we are constantly breathing in more and more contaminants with each breath. We've started to make some changes. More recently, people might have heard the term ERV, which is an energy recovery ventilator. It is essentially a powered mechanical ventilation system that brings in fresh air from outside. But that's recently. We're talking 50 years of construction changes that have happened where we didn't think of ventilation in mind, right? So there's going to be a lot of course correction there. We also have been poorly educated about the dangers of mold over time. Mm-hmm. Remember, we all grew up and it was like, if you see some mold, you throw some bleach on it, you paint over it, no big deal. Right?
Yeah.
Well, how much damage did we do by having this nonchalant attitude, right? How many buildings were improperly maintained when there was a water damage event, right? Because there was this total nonchalant attitude towards it. Well, now we're realizing, that wasn't a good idea, right? The CDC, the EPA, they're all re-looking at all their protocols and recommendations to the public, and they're making revisions. The IICRC, is making revisions to its protocol to include mycotoxins, as we've all become more aware of the presence of mycotoxins, which are toxins produced by certain species of mold. But it's kind of too little too late, right? We have so much damage that has been done that we have to course correct. And unfortunately, how that course correction happens is people like you and I, we buy a home, we move into it, our entire family gets sick. We have no idea why. We go to 40 different doctors doing all this lab work. We finally realize it's our home. We get our home tested. We spend thousands of dollars on that. It tells us we have all this mold here. And now we have to spend $50, $60, $100,000 to remediate it, right? This is the everyday American story that I hear 100 times a day. So we are now paying for it. Our health continues to decline. We have never been sicker than we are today. I mean, 60% of the global population deals with at least one chronic condition. 79% of US adults are on prescription medication. 79%. That's a 19% increase, by the way. We are trending in the wrong direction. And we have to ask ourselves, how is that possible with the advancements in medicine and technology and exercise equipment that we could have in each room? Because we all think we want to be healthy. We got to eat clean. We got to exercise. Well, it's not working, because here we are. We still haven't gotten on the healthy track here where our numbers start to decline, which is what we're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. And, you mentioned, what do they call it? I think here in Canada, it's like airtight homes. Does that make sense? Where it's much more energy efficient. And I know the newer homes are airtight. And so that may not be ideal, especially if you're not a person that opens the windows now and then and lives in just heat and AC all year round, right?
Yep.
But is it always just about mold? Like, what else within the house?
Well, if you have mold, you're going to have bacteria, because they're both going to grow in the same locations. Water is Earth's life source, right? So we have to think about why do we have mold? We have too much water.
Yeah.
If we have too much water, we're also going to have too much bacteria. Now we're going to be dealing with toxins from bacteria, toxins from mold, and we live in these airtight buildings, as we said. I love Canada. They were pushing the ERV bandwagon probably the soonest, which is always good, because they realized pretty quickly, wow, if we're going to build these airtight homes, we need ventilation. But how many homes were built with no ventilation in these airtight homes? Too many. Yeah, here's another thing. I'm going to try to show a picture through this camera. But let's see if you can. Do you see that blackness on that piece of insulation right there?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So the spray foam community, there's a community of building biologists and spray foam enthusiasts, okay? They have been preaching for years that spray foam doesn't get moldy. It's the perfect air barrier, water barrier. It's the perfect solution for homes. You have more R value per density with spray foam, which is true. But I just showed you that picture of literally black fungus growing on spray foam. They said it couldn't happen. It happens. It happens all the time. I could show you hundreds of projects worth of pictures showing you that it will grow in the spray foam. They also said many years ago, oh, it won't grow in the cement. That's fine. It won't grow in plaster because plaster is cementitious. It won't grow in cement. Well, I could show you thousands of pictures showing you that it grows in cement. So we have to really change our framing here, because unfortunately, a lot of us rely on the construction industry to build us these safe, healthy homes. But the construction industry has no understanding of microbiology. So we get caught into this catch-22 of, I want to have the perfect home built, but yet when I have this home built, they're not thinking of the science aspect in mind that we need to have to create this healthy environment. So we often end up with a bad environment with mold, bacteria, toxins, high VOCs, high levels of formaldehyde, all these different things that are contributing to our environment that are entering our body with every breath we take 20,000 times per day. And then we wonder why we don't feel well inside of our own homes.
See, traditionally people think that mold can only grow, on wood or in carpet. So are you saying that mold can essentially grow almost everywhere, anywhere?
It can grow on top of glass, on top of plastic. The nice thing about a non-porous material such as glass or plastic, right, is it can't grow into it. It doesn't have pores for the roots to actually physically grow into.
Right.
But if we start thinking about, okay, well, what's semi-porous then, where it can slightly grow into things? Well, that's wood, that's cement, right? Then we have things like porous, fabric, drywall, insulation. If it starts growing into that, you literally can't remediate it. You have to toss it. So this starts to beg the question, well, if I have a water damage event, right? Let's say I have a roof leak and it leaks down 2 levels of the home. A lot of these companies will come in and they'll go to the bottom level because water travels down, right? And they'll cut 2 feet off the bottom level. Then they'll try to dry the place out and tell you all is fine. However, all is not fine, right? Because actually the water got trapped in between those 2 levels. The insulation soaking up the water on the top floor, on the bottom floor. You have to open up from that bottom floor all the way up to where the leak emanated from. And nobody's doing that. I just spoke to a woman earlier, right before I got on the call with you. Super sick, has high levels of this mold called Stachybotrys. And she's like, well, I had this leak. It traveled from below. No one really did anything. They just kind of dried it out. We have to get away from doing things like that. A lot of these companies, they're designed to just come in and set up these fans and dehumidifiers, and they bill per day for them. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
But we don't care about these companies making money. We care about our health. So we need to switch the entire mindset of how we operate in homes, because guess what? We're going to keep living in homes. So we better be able to master, having a healthy home.
Okay. Now I'm I'm paranoid because I kind of mentioned this before we started recording, how we had a water leak. So we were putting in an egress window in the basement, and the mason was using a water saw, and the water literally went down between the drywall and the concrete or foundation, because it's the basement. And my basement, like the carpet, the underpad, soaked. I saw it immediately. They stopped obviously immediately and you mentioned fans and humidifier. And so they got on it immediately. So there was no lag. There was no time wasted. And then they came back to clean up the carpet and everything. And the person that now I'm like, oh crap, like, do I need to look? They did change the drywall anyway, because the drywall had to be cut out for the window and redone regardless where that water went down. And then the person who was fixing the carpet afterwards, this was probably a week or 2 later, they were checking around, around the carpet, there's wood with tacks. And then there's obviously the concrete, all of that. And he was saying to me that if there was a problem with mold, we would see it in the framing of the carpet where the tacks are. I don't know what you call that, Michael.
Carpet tacks. Yeah. Literally carpet tacks.
So he said there would be at least some spores there. Does this make sense to you?
It does. I would take it a step further though, because the carpet tack literally just catches the carpet. It's literally, it just kind of nails right into the back side of the fabric.
Yeah.
So you could pick it up and then hammer it back down. I would pick it up a little bit and check the underside of the fabric. A, to make sure that's dry. B, to make sure there's no mold growing on the concrete underneath it or on the underside of the carpeting, because all it takes is 24 to 48 hours and mold could start to grow.
Right.
Dangerous molds like the toxigenic species, Stachybotrys cotomium, they'll take 3 to 5 days to grow. It sounds like it's been at least a week at this point. So if they were on it fast enough and they were able to dry it, it's very possible you're in good shape, especially since they removed the drywall, especially since if there was any insulation in there, they got rid of that because that can log moisture. The key element here is how fast can it dry? Well, if a roof leak happens 2 stories, like I mentioned, and there's insulation there and that's soaking up all the moisture, doesn't matter how many fans, how many dehumidifiers, it's not going to fully dry within that window. And so it almost always is going to be a mold situation. You're leak capping a couple feet below this window, all in a very localized area, and they opened up the wall, right? That was the best thing that they could have done for you, because had they not, I bet you it would have held moisture longer than you would have liked, and mold would have started to grow already. So the last really thing that you'd want to check is that carpet.
I knew you were going to say that, because that's where my reservation was too. I'm like, okay, well, we know that the wall was kind of dealt with, the drywall was dealt with, but the carpet, I mean, you would know better than anyone that carpet doesn't dry that fast and underpad doesn't dry that fast. So it was not put back down until it was dry, and it was all kind of separated and everything with these industrial fans and humidifiers. There's no smell. So how would I know? So we put it all back. And this is, I think, an important question for anybody. What are the signs other than by the time you're already sick? Do we have a way of knowing?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? So let me give you a couple of different scenarios. So for you, what signs would you look for in this exact scenario? How does it look? How does it smell, right? Because, of course, you could bring in a hygienist, you could do some testing, but I would say the first thing I would do is look, how does it look? How does it smell? Do I see any discoloration? Do I see any mold growing on any of those layers beneath the carpeting? That would be, because it was such a localized thing, it's so easy for you to kind of play detective in that scenario. When it comes to like a whole house, right? And specifically, most people are moving into this house. And maybe they live there for a couple of years and they notice some weird health issues, but they never attribute it to the house. They go to all these different doctors, get lab work, everything seems fine, and they're just confused. This scenario happens all too frequently, unfortunately. I guarantee you there's someone listening to this right now that goes, oh my God, that sounds like me. When you go from that point and you're trying to tell signs from there, it's really difficult, because the house might look fine, because you just bought it maybe a couple of years ago, and before you bought it, they painted everything. So you can't really see if there's any discoloration signs, nothing to see. And not all houses smell either. No. I'm in Gwyneth Paltrow's house. That thing smelled amazing. It looked amazing. I could have taken a magazine photo shoot right there that day that I was there. However, she had all these problems lurking behind the walls in the HVAC systems, right? And they were not producing any odors. Odor, too, is going to be dependent upon the size of the volume of the house, right? So if I have a problem, I'm in this 12 by 12 room right now. If I have a leak here, I'm probably going to develop a smell pretty quickly. But if I live in an open floor plan house, which is like every modern house these days, it's going to be a lot harder to notice odors. You have to really pay attention and be closer to where the area is, because these odors are actually particles that are picked up by our olfactory senses in our nose. And these particles have to be generated in enough quantity for you to really notice it. The further away you are, the less likely you are to actually breathe in these particles to detect any sort of odor. So if you think of large volume of air, you might not see these things. So you're typically going to see like larger houses, larger condos, larger apartments are going to be harder to detect odors unless you're really in this vicinity. The other thing that I tell people to look for, it's like this amazing free little hack. Go over to your toilet tanks, take the cover off the toilet tank, look at the underside of the cover, look inside the toilet tank. If you see mold growing in there, and let's be honest, none of us ever really look in there.
No.
That's a good sign that mold's somewhere nearby, opportunistically getting inside. Because you have sources of mold in your environment, and they're constantly sporulating and producing these spores that float around. They move across the house, apartment, condo, etc., based upon different air patterns in the house. What makes air patterns? Well, every time the HVAC system turns on, if I just get up and walk through this room, I'm creating an air pattern. If I open and close doors, I'm creating an air pattern, right? So there's tons of ways that air moves throughout the house, and we'll take particles from one room to the next. So the toilet tank's a perfect place to look because it's got this heavy cover on it, right? How much air exchange is there really? Not a lot. And so a spore still has to land in there to start to grow. Well, if one spore lands in there and grows, it's probably not, it's going to take a long time to even be noticeable because we're talking something 25 to 50 times smaller than the eye could see. So if I see a nasty mess in there, I know there's a lot of mold in the environment already that's opportunistically getting inside. So the toilet tank hack is like one of the best free hacks you can do. And then, of course, there's more scientific measures like I could do a dust test. Why do I test the dust, not the air? Well, because the air pulls 75 milliliters of air from one location. So let's just say I have a 1,500 square foot apartment. Well, 75 milliliters of air is not a lot of air to measure an entire 1,500 square foot apartment because think about a 2-liter bottle of Coke. That's like the cap of this 2-liter. So think about that across an entire, apartment. There's not a lot of air that it's collecting to measure the entire apartment. So it's a horrible screening tool. But why is the dust such a good screening tool? Because if I have a problem behind this wall behind me, it's generating particles that are getting aerosolized that are then settling amongst my dust, becoming a part of my dust. And that dust is traversing across the house. So if I collect dust from different parts of my environment and I send that into a lab to be analyzed, I'm likely going to find if there's any trouble spots based upon those results.
Now, who does that? Okay. Lots of questions here. Give me a second. The toilet hack. Wow. I have never heard this before. Does that mean that the mold is somewhere in the vicinity of that bathroom?
Yeah, I mean, most likely it'll be closer to that bathroom. So if you have multiple bathrooms in your house, you might notice that one toilet tank looks worse than the others, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to know, okay, the problem is closer to where this is. But of course, air and spores and dust, it does move throughout the house. So if you have a problem further away, it still could likely grow in that toilet tank, but it wouldn't be as pervasive as the toilet tank closest to that problem.
Okay. And then the whole dust thing, you know how Home Depot sells those mold tests where you can put them in a room and let the culture do its thing. Is there any merit to those, Michael, just to get started for some people?
There's some merit to them. They also sell these like little swabs that will turn purple if they're mold. I found the swabs turning purple. It doesn't tell you what mold it is or how much, so it's a little difficult, but if I just wanted to like test my pillow, that might be a perfect little $10 thing to do. The culture plates you could find pretty much anywhere. What they do is you actually set them open and spores have to land in that culture plate. Then you close it and basically allow it to grow. Kind of a fun little science project. The problem with them is it's not as good of a screening tool, number one, because it's only going to pick up stuff close to where it is. And then two, by the time you go through this and you actually try to put these plates around the house, you're going to see some growth in some of them. You have to look at the worst ones and say, okay, this is closer to where there's a major source here, but you still have no idea where that source is. So if I put it in my kitchen and my bedroom, yeah, maybe I look at it, well, the kitchen has a lot more mold than the bedroom. Okay, I must have a problem in my kitchen, but where? Kitchens are expensive. Am I ripping out my entire kitchen? Is it behind one cabinet? Where is this thing coming from? And so I think it's a little limited in its use case where it's actually useful, but people have to start their journey somewhere. So I always tell people, start what makes sense to you. Just understand that every test has its limitations. Even the dust test, it's a great screening tool because it tells me, do I have a problem or not? But if I have a problem, I'm going to need to do a deeper investigation to figure out where that problem's coming from.
So we know about you mentioned the Q-tip, there's the culture. Can you get this dust test elsewhere?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. The reason I'm saying that is that obviously, I don't know what it's like where you are, Michael, but here living in Canada and Toronto, it's very, very expensive. Cost of living is insane. And so people are going to first want to investigate a little bit on their own before they call a company such as yourself to come in. So like let's say me, I want to see and get some idea first, because nobody's going to come and test my whole house for free. So, right, there's got to be some hacks. So we talked about a couple. What else is out there just to get people started? And then if they see, okay, there's evidence that there's an issue here, then they call a company like yours.
So the dust test is $275 door to door. That includes the lab fees, shipping, the whole nine.
And that comes from you, Michael?
It comes from thedusttest.com.
Oh, okay.
It is a product that I helped co-found because really it needed to be in people's hands.
Okay.
You know, if a lot of people call and spend thousands of dollars getting someone into their house, and more often than not, they don't really get much value out of it because they just want to take an air sample in the center of the room. It kind of brings you right back to this discussion of, well, where is the problem?
Right.
So you get that data. Based upon that data, the specificities, like 36 different species typically known to be in a water damage environment. It tells you exactly how much quantity per milligram of dust, if it's normal or not. And then if it's abnormal, how abnormal? Are we talking, is this 10 times worse, 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse? How does my home compare to all the other homes that have been tested?
Cool.
All this information for you to kind of make a decision. A lot of people renting buy this test, right? Because they want to have data to show the landlord, hey, this place is no good. I need to move out. And now they have to figure out, okay, well, how toxic has this place been? And what do I need to do with my stuff? Do I need to clean it, discard some of it, making these difficult life decisions? Homeowners use it because they want to know what's the home like? And do I need to get an inspector in? Because like I said, getting an inspector in could be thousands of dollars. As you mentioned, it's not free and it's not easy to go through that route if you don't have to by getting that information. There are many clients that have sent me their dust test and said, hey, what do you think? I think you just need to clean your HVAC based upon all the species here. Your HVAC hasn't been cleaned in 4 years. You don't have that great of a filter on it. Let's clean your HVAC. Let's upgrade your filter. You don't have these toxigenic species that would indicate you've had significant water damage. So you're in good shape. Mm-hmm. Not every call is like that, but some of them are. And now that person can spend their thousands of dollars cleaning their system, investing in a better filter, than getting someone in to do all these tests to tell them their house is fine. So we wanted to create a product that put people in the driver's seat, empowered them with information to kind of make decisions from there.
Okay. Cause again, I think I could talk to you for hours, honestly, because there's so many issues with even home inspections. It's not like they go and get the dust test and do the dust test for you before you go and buy a new home. And like you said, sometimes the signs are not there in terms of the smell, or you can't see it. So it's really hard for somebody who's buying a new home, renting a new place, to know. But I guess if they want to do it for themselves, they can do the dust test themselves, right?
Totally. I mean, when you get a home inspector, it's really nice to know that the hot water heater is 8 years old and it's going to go out in a couple of years, and I got to be prepared for that. It's great to know that I've got a hole in my window screen, right? Yeah. The issue is that the home inspection process really doesn't cover the environmental aspects. And as we mentioned, the environmental aspects have a direct result on our health. Yeah. So it's actually way more important than I've got a hole in my window screen and I need $30 credits from the seller. Yeah. We need to start moving into this, taking advantage of this health aspect and making sure that the home is healthy. Yes. And whatever money I'm going to have to spend to make it healthy is going to make sense for me in my family situation. So we've got to revamp the entire home inspection process because it's too nitpicky on things that aren't going to make or break us. Yeah. And it's not nitpicky enough on the things that will make or break us. So I agree. I think, the $275 dust test, to get those results in as part of your home buying process, as part of your just your annual checkup of your home. Because look, homes change over time.
Yes.
I need to know about that. I think is a really smart thing to do. And I'm not saying $275 is the cheapest thing in the world, but it's economical for the data that you get. It uses PCR technology, so everything is DNA specific analysis. People might remember PCR from COVID days.
Totally.
It's the same technology, and it really helps us analyze the environment. And why focus on mold? Because mold's the easiest thing to detect, believe it or not, if you use the right detection tools. And so if I find mold, then I know where the source of bacteria is, and I know where the source of the toxins are coming from, and I can clean it up properly.
Okay. How often do you suggest people get their HVAC or air duct cleaned? Like all of that?
Depends on the filter. So
the filters, okay, this might sound like a dumb question, Michael. Filter is part of your furnace. I just want to, because listen, I change my filter every 2 months. I don't know. Is that right? Like I change it, the filter that goes through. Is this good? I don't know.
Probably for the filter that you have. Each filter is going to be have different recommendations on how often it needs to be changed. I have a MERV 16 filter. I have to change it every 1.5 to 3 years because it's like a HEPA filter. It's better than HEPA. So you might have a standard filter that you get that's like a MERV 13, which MERV 13 is, like the highest you can get without needing essentially a apparatus to hook into your HVAC system. Here's one of the challenges with filtration. The higher the filter, the smaller the particle it removes. So we want that.
Yeah.
But also the higher the filter, the more airflow it restricts, which could be a negative thing for the HVAC system. So the product that I have, in order to be able to get a MERV 16 in it, it's designed in a way that it has multiple chambers to allow air to pass through. So I get a MERV 16 with the pressure drop of a MERV 8. I know I'm confusing the heck out of people right now, but essentially you want to have the highest filter, but you also don't want to have a massive pressure drop, or you could freeze the coil and cause problems to the HVAC system. So there's a little bit of a science there. If you have a standard MERV 13 filter, I say standard, that means that's what you should have if you have an HVAC system that with a 1-inch filter media. You want to change that probably every other month.
Yeah, so I am doing it right.
You are doing it right.
Okay, good.
But I would also argue that you should really look at upgrading to a higher level of MERV filtration, because you'll start eliminating smaller particles from getting into your system more frequently.
Okay. And then HVAC, air duct cleaning, you get those telemarketers calling you to come and I don't know if you do, but here we do, who want to do air duct cleaning. Is that something worthwhile or not?
It can be if it's done by the right company. So I like the National Air Duct Cleaning Association. And if you type in your zip code, it'll tell you all the people certified.
Okay.
And they're really good because they teach people pressurization, how to put the system under negative pressure so that as you're cleaning it, you're not accidentally getting the particles from inside the ducts and system all over the house. So no system is hermetically sealed, so you will have some spillage when you clean, which is probably what some people are concerned about. However, I always organize it so that when my system's cleaned, I schedule cleaning to happen the day after, so that as everything settles, my entire house gets cleaned.
Makes sense.
And that's the way to combat that. But you still you don't want to have more to clean, so you want to hire someone who's going to clean it properly. But yeah, I think the way you're doing it, you'd probably want to clean twice a year. And you'd want to do it in the spring and fall, right? Because that's when your systems are changing over and getting ready to switch from heating to cooling, et cetera, et cetera. And if you upgrade your system to like a MERV 16 filter, I would recommend maybe cleaning it every time you change the filter, which could be every year or every other year.
Okay. This is good advice. It's good for people to know, because oh no, you're not going to laugh at me. You're going to think, oh my God, Sandy, like what's wrong with you? I had some major renovations done and I hadn't done the air duct cleaning. And my house was built around 2001. And when they came in, they actually found, oh my God, like an old like sandwich and a can of Coke from 2001 that was in my walls. Like, oh my God, it was somewhere. I know. You're going to be like, Sandy, what's wrong with you? But yes, I'm learning, right? This is a long time ago.
How did that sandwich look, by the way? Did it look appetizing?
Yeah, it was, I'm sure, really edible.
Probably very moldy.
It was like, anyway, it was obviously because my house was built around then. Somebody had put it near like one of the walls. One of the guys who was cleaning the ducts found it. I don't know. Don't ask me. All I know is they showed it to me. And ever since then, I've been cleaning out my air ducts and my dryer vent. Because it gets, so I guess something I learned, and maybe anybody who's listening will find this interesting. The vent from my dryer to outside, it's a long traveling with a few elbows and it gets really trapped. And there's like moisture because of the wet clothes. Mm-hmm. Is that a place that mold can really harbor if it's not
Absolutely.
Cleaned out? Okay.
Yeah, because you have all that lint that gets stuck in the lines and then it condensates, right, because of the moisture.
Yeah.
And then that condensation seeps into the lint, and now you have a nice food source for mold to grow. So luckily, my dryer vent is literally like 2 inches away from the back.
Lucky.
So it literally pipes right out. So it's a really simple thing to clean. But some dryer vents, they can be 10, 20 feet long, right? And that's a lot of different places for lint to get trapped. A lot of different areas for moisture absorption and then mold to grow. So that dryer vent needs to be cleaned probably on the same, like I would, when you're cleaning your system spring and fall, I would have that dryer vent as part of it to get clean with it. And even if you upgrade to the MERV 16, you probably still want to clean the dryer vent a little more frequently than just once a year, once every other year.
Yeah, I've had some major issues because of that distance between the dryer. It's a pain. So let's get back into HEPA filters, because that's another question that people always have. So I have a couple of different HEPA filters. I have one in my main room. Is this even worth the money to get one in every main room? I mean, I guess it depends on your filtration system. Like you're talking about all these fancy like MERV whatever. And I don't have your MERV. I have my MERV. So my MERV isn't as good as your MERV. So I guess for me, I just, make do with my HEPA filters that I have.
Yeah, I mean, HEPA filters are good. So let's talk about HEPA for a second.
Yeah.
First off, it's basically a standard that was developed in the 1940s. Okay, so you have to essentially reach a certain particle removal efficiency rating to get the HEPA stamp of approval. And HEPA's great, but it doesn't mean that we can't achieve better than HEPA. And that's what you actually want to strive for. So unfortunately, HEPA has become kind of a marketing term.
Okay.
Where it's like, ooh, I've got this HEPA filter, so it's the best. Best according to 1940s standards, right? So we're 80 years into the future here. We actually want better than HEPA. So MERV is an efficiency rating for different filters. And we actually want to pay attention more to the MERV rating than we do HEPA standard. Because again, HEPA standard just means it's achieve this standard. When the MERV rating comes, we can actually look at, okay, based upon this rating, there are certain particle sizes that can be removed efficiently based upon the rating that the filter has. Now, most air purifier companies, they don't really advertise their MERV rating. They just advertise, okay, we're HEPA, and that's it. Well, you can do a little digging when you're buying an air purifier and ask, what's the smallest particle you can remove at what efficiency? And typically they'll have some sort of studies available from their product that show you, okay, yeah, this can remove a particle as small as 7 nanometers 85% of the time. Okay, great. And you can compare that efficiency to other manufacturers' efficiencies to see what's the best product that money can buy based upon the goals you want to have. The goal should always be remove the smallest particle possible at the highest efficiency possible for the dollars that I'm spending.
Yeah.
But are they valuable? Yes. I mean, I've seen places, have tons of particulate matter in the air, and within an hour of turning on the air purifier, that number has dropped significantly. So unfortunately, I have 2 kids running around, plus me and my wife. We're going to have particulate matter in our house. We have, a cleaning regimen that happens here at the house. But with kids, it's like you could literally never clean up fast enough to get rid of all the crap that's going to get circulated in the air. So air purifiers are really helpful for that. If you have a good filter on the HVAC unit, you're essentially also turning the HVAC unit into a really good air purifier because it's sucking stuff up, trapping things in the filter, and, supplying out clean air. So, you want to look at doing all the things that you can at reducing the amount of particles you're breathing. And you want to be extra concerned about the particles you can't see, right? Because this is the small stuff that bypasses our self-defense mechanisms, enters our body, and enters our bloodstream.
Okay. Now, in terms of the signs and symptoms, I want to get into that. Oh, before that, I want to ask you about the HEPA filter. If the HEPA filter is not cleaned or changed regularly, can it be actually more damaging than good?
So filters are essentially porous material.
Right.
Right. So if the filter is not changed often enough, unfortunately, you will get, moisture, humidity that absorbs into the filter over time. And now you could actually start to grow mold and bacteria inside this filter.
Wow.
So having a filter on past its useful life is not a good thing.
Okay. That's good to know. I did research that myself because I'm like, okay, well, we've got these HEPA filters, but how often are we changing the filter? I feel like that's a bigger problem than we even know about. I bet you there's a lot of people out there who are like, I don't know, I've had the same filter for God knows how long. I just keep turning it on. But a lot of them have these almost like a little warning system that goes off when the filter becomes old, right? So that's a good thing.
Some of them do, and that's great. Think about like when we're in COVID era, we all were wearing masks and stuff. Like if you wore that same mask for a week straight without changing it or washing it, depending on if you had the fabric or the throwaway, you would notice that mask starts to smell, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Like pretty gross. Well, that's what's happening to our filters, right? And you saw how quickly that is. There was a great study that just came out that showed us our pillowcases after a week of not being washed are actually more contaminated than our toilet seats.
Oh, my God.
Pretty disgusting to see, right? So we had to think about like what happens to these filters over time. Certainly they're not on your face and, you're not drooling into them. So there is some, life sustainability there. But over time, this thing gets disgusting and it's not going to work when it's clogged. So particles start to bypass. And unfortunately, if there's mold or bacteria growing, it's going to actually be generating particles instead of trapping them. So we have to be more mindful about changing our filters.
Okay, so let's get back to the signs and symptoms. So, we talked all about filtration. We talked about warning signs within the home, but what about on our bodies? It's not always obvious that we've got issues with mold. So what do we need to look for if we suspect that there's a problem?
Yeah, I think it's not always obvious because, when you look at health, so many different symptoms can be associated or attributed to water damage homes and mold and bacteria. I'll give you an example. Like the top symptoms you hear about: brain fog, chronic fatigue. Okay, well, let's think about that for a second. How many people, go ahead and raise your hand if this sounds like you. Yeah, I've been really tired lately, but it's probably just my hormones. Yeah, I've been really tired lately, but I'm probably just getting older. Yeah, I'm really tired lately, but I do have kids running around and, they drain the life out of me. Okay, good. So that's tiredness, right? We normalize that. Okay, well, what about brain fog? Well, yeah, I have been more forgetful lately, but it's probably just because I'm getting older, or it's probably just because I'm under a lot of stress, or blah, 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 right? We make excuses for our own warning signs that our body provides us, just off of brain fog and chronic fatigue alone. Right?
Totally.
There are so many other issues like eczema, skin issues, joint pain, right? The list goes on. And honestly, it sounds so much like so many other things. And because nobody's ever been telling you that air quality is vital to your health, that clean breathing is more important than clean eating. So we don't think about that kind of stuff when we encounter it, right? So that's why we normalize it. Or how about we go to 40 different doctors and we get told all of our labs are normal. So therefore we're not sick. It must be in our heads. Happens all the time. If you do me a favor and you Google pretty much any autoimmune disease, I don't care, anyone, SIBO, you want to Google rheumatoid arthritis, any single one of them, you will find an interesting correlation. For some reason, they will be sensitive to mold. For some reason. Pick any autoimmune disease, lupus, anyone, just Google it, pick your autoimmune disease, type it in, also type in mold. You will find that for some reason they're sensitive to mold. I'm not going to say that mold causes these autoimmune diseases, but certainly it seems to exacerbate. And whether it causes or exacerbates doesn't matter, because I will find relief if I don't have it around me.
Yeah.
So it begs the question, if we know all of this stuff, why aren't we piecing it together? And then when we piece it together and realize, holy cow, this is a big problem, why aren't we then doing something about it? I think that's where we're at. And I'm not blaming you, right? I'm blaming corporate America. I'm blaming, health insurance companies because they are slow to get on the bandwagon here. I am blaming the World Health Organization for not taking their ICD-10 code for mold toxicity and pushing that out more aggressively. I am blaming the government for not keeping up to date on all the medical journals and health studies out there and helping to educate people more. And I'm blaming, the medical system itself because it's not putting doctors in a position to help evolve, right? It's putting doctors in a position to sell prescription medication based upon symptoms. And I think we can do so much better. And I also think that, you're a doctor, right? So you probably get this all the time.
I'm not a doctor. I'm a nutritionist.
Okay. Well, very, very closely related, right? When people come to you, it's like, you'd be surprised to see how many actual people come to you educated. They start asking questions.
Yes.
Right? Because we've been put in a position from a societal standpoint where we have to advocate for ourselves. And that's great. I love it. But, we have to all come together as a society, regardless of our professions and stuff, to start pushing this needle forward. Because what's the end result? Well, the end result is we've never been sicker than we are today.
Yeah. I mean, I know you know so much about this. What are some of the best tests? Because simple blood work is not going to tell you if you have mold.
It won't, no. There's some evolving blood tests that can detect mycotoxins from an IgE perspective. Like I said, it's evolving. I don't know how great it is today, but it's just like anything else. The more tests that we take, the better things get. There are mycotoxin urine tests, also not perfect, but if you can take mycotoxin urine tests and you can take the dust test, you'll be able to actually correlate those results together. Same thing with the blood work. If you do find a positive match, there's the oats test, the organic acid test. That's another really good one. There are some really cool brain scanning technologies that actually can help understand the inflammation of the brain and trace that back to different inflammation caused by different molds. And there's some evolving technology from Germany coming out in German labs that's helping people really understand more about their epigenetics and how a mold might play a factor into that. We are very much at a new frontier. What we have isn't perfect. We have some pieces that we could put together to understand. The problem really lies herein. Evolution requires a great deal of energy. One of the forms of energy on this planet is money, right? We actually need to raise enough awareness and push enough people down this path where money starts flowing in to invest in new technologies, research, etc. This is such a under the radar topic that you don't have big, massive companies investing into air quality like we need. Mm-hmm. We've had probably more in the past couple of years than ever before, so we're trending in the right direction. But this is not where it needs to be to really have the technology developed, to really have better tests, more perfect results, and better correlation studies.
Are all molds bad in the home or dangerous?
Well, we have this theory of too much of anything will kill you, right? So you have 1 cup of coffee, for example, you're stimulated, you're feeling good. You have 100 cups of coffee, your heart stops, right? So yeah, I would say any mold in massive quantities that are severely off the charts, you're probably going to notice something weird. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just an allergy-like symptom, right? But you're going to notice something's off. But no, not all molds are exactly as dangerous as some of the top, more dangerous ones. And those are going to be mycotoxin producing molds. There's different mycotoxins. Many of them will affect people differently, but a lot of these mycotoxins are carcinogenic. They can cause cancer. We know about it. We actually monitor it on our food supplies. So this isn't like a new scientific emerging topic here. A lot of mycotoxins can provide infertility issues in women. Mycotoxins can be passed down from mother to baby if breastfeeding as well. We know that because of the animal studies of it being passed down from cows to calves. We can cause all kinds of different neurodegenerative issues. So Dr. Dale Bredesen's been doing amazing work with inhalational Alzheimer's, as he calls it, showing that mold as an environmental toxin is increasing the likelihood that people will get Alzheimer's. We also have the early onset of dementia, same thing. So we understand it affects us, the neuro pathway. We understand that it affects the nervous system. We understand that it's also an immune suppressant. I mean, we literally make immune suppressant drugs out of molds. Penicillin, anyone? Mm-hmm. And we also know that it can be an inflammation problem as well, right? So we start putting all these pieces together. Your immune system might work really well against some of the side effects of mold, but not really well against others. So that also makes it challenging because you and I can be exposed to the same molds in the same location, but have wildly different symptoms. Mm-hmm. COVID, anyone? I mean, when I had COVID, yes. My wife had COVID, same strain of COVID. She lost her sense of taste and smell. I didn't. I was bedridden for like 3 days. She was up and around. Everything is going to affect us differently. And so that does make it more challenging when we're trying to diagnose and treat different symptoms.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Even you're talking about COVID, and my husband is so weird. And that's just him trying to justify his bad habits, Michael, because he's a smoker and I'm not. Obviously, I haven't smoked since my 30s. I used to smoke too. But when we both got COVID, he was hardly sick. And he's like, see, that's protecting me. I'm like, oh my God, don't say that. Meanwhile, I had the 6 or 8 week cough. And here I am, a nutritionist, very clean, eating clean. So physiologically, everybody has a different response. So that's important to note with mold too. Now, here's a question for you because I know this happens to a lot of people. Wintertime, you get the condensation on your windows. And here where I am, it's really, really cold. So you get that black mold on the vinyl. And I know you said that vinyl is not porous. They're vinyl windows. So if you just regularly clean that, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, so it's growing on the vinyl itself, right? Basically, you wipe it off.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
But it's why is it growing on the vinyl? You start to ask questions like, why is it growing? How is the moisture impacting this window area that's allowing it to grow in the first place? Sometimes it's just because we don't do a great job cleaning the window tracks, right? And over time, we get a lot of dust, debris, and stuff from outside, pollen, dander, etc. Mold just needs some food. It'll start to grow around the food and eat off of it. But sometimes we have a deeper issue, like, okay, that side of the house doesn't really get a lot of sun.
Yeah.
Or that side of the house gets the most rain. Or, I need to really take a look at some of the drainage issues. The roof overhang isn't enough. Like, we need to start thinking about what are some things we can do to kind of decrease the odds of mold growing there in the future. And it sometimes could be little simple things like putting a awning around that window, right? So there are definitely things we can do, but we always want to ask ourselves, why is this happening? To kind of get down to the root cause of it.
Mm-hmm. That's really, see, now I'm going to go and analyze my whole house and annoy my husband because I'm going to tell him that we need to do this and we need to do that and spend more money, right? So this is life. Okay. I do have to ask this. So if I hear, because this is a real life example, I like to give real life examples. I have 2 kids in university and they go and they move into this dump. Who knows? Let's say they're paying whatever per month. It's expensive. And then they go into this room and there's mold on the wall that you can actually see. Just simply cutting it out, is that a safe thing to do? Should you be wearing masks? Like, how should you call in an expert? Okay, I know you should be telling the landlord, of course, but a lot of times, Michael, these landlords don't give a crap because they'll find the next student who's going to pay that money.
Yeah, that's a big problem. The lack of awareness on how this impacts human beings, I think, creates this society in which, well, it's just unsightly, so I'm not going to pay any money to deal with this. You guys could just paint over it. No big deal. And, look, some people are more honest than others. And sometimes you show somebody something and you say, look, I'm concerned about this for my health's sake. They may actually take the steps to fix it properly, but not everybody, right? No. So you get into these, like we call them slumlords, these slumlord situations. Different places have different rights, so knowing your real estate laws in the area in which you're in can provide you a big leg up on negotiating with your landlord. If you cut it out, you're going to disturb it.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. And if you see a spot on the wall, there could be millions of spores already there colonized, growing together. And so you could release a lot into the environment. So it probably would be good to hire a professional in this case, especially because you could see it, just to get it done correctly. The alternative is, you take a 3-day course, understand the principles of remediation if you're handy, and kind of do it yourself. I actually made that recommendation to someone on the call earlier because they couldn't afford to hire someone to remediate. There's always something you can do. I don't know if your bylaws from renting this lease allow you to open walls like that, but there's a lot of things to consider. Number one, usually you always want to notify the landlord. Hey, this is a problem. We have to take care of it. If you don't want to fix it, I'm willing to help. Let's discuss some options and kind of get the conversation going. But mold in universities is a big, big, big problem. I have a website called moldu.org, which highlights all the different places in the U.S. That have had mold problems in the news, not just,
Wow.
reported mold problems, like mold problems in the news. And it's really not getting the attention that it deserves. And this is the future of our kids.
Mm-hmm. Like in residences, probably. That's what you're referring to.
In the dorms,
yeah,
in the, off-campus housing, like it is a big problem.
Oh gosh. Okay, so we're just over an hour. We covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that we didn't cover, Michael, that you want to touch on?
I think the last thing that people should really be aware of is humidity controls.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
Yes.
the key to solving a mold problem, a bacteria problem, is you control the source of water. So if you have a leak, you have to first repair the leak, then pair the material that got damaged. But there's another thing that we need to be concerned about, and it's humidity, right? So humidity is actually moisture in the air. So it's not like you see the water, but it's in the air. You might actually feel it against your skin if you go from a drier place to a more humid place, right? Sometimes if you live in a place like me, like in Florida, it could feel sticky almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to actually be able to control that environment. And you want to do that based upon the climate that you're in. The goal is to keep it less than 60% humidity. So you want to keep it at 50, fine. Just keep it less than 60. The sweet spot is about 35 to 50. Below 35, it's too dry, and you're going to damage wood structure in your house. You'll probably have a lot of cracked skin. Human beings don't really like it too dry either. So we want to keep it in that sweet spot of like 35 to 50 so that we could thrive, but nothing else is thriving.
That's important to note. Okay. Anything else, Michael? Let us know how we can find out, because you're only in the US right now. I know most of my listeners are American, but
yeah, so if you're outside the US, you can find me on themichaelrubino.com, and you can consult with me outside the US and I can help you, irregardless of me being able to physically send people to your house. If you are inside the US, you can go to homecleanse.com and you can actually get, resources, service information, product information to start to take this journey on creating a healthier environment. And you can also go to changetheairfoundation.org, because if anything that I've said resonates with you, I would highly recommend you figure out a way to get involved in being a part of this movement to help pass new laws in government, to help educate people that are not aware of this topic, because as you can see, it's very, very important.
it is important. And then, the other thing I will note is that if you have a mold problem and your health is affected, work with a practitioner who understands mold. I mean, I think you and I have, we both know Dr. John Kim. I think he's very skilled at knowing exactly the processes to take with his patients if you do have mold. And I know him well as well. So get in touch with us, because we can provide those references, because you don't want to go to just anyone. And I'm sorry to say it, I do say it a lot, Michael, but your family physician will probably have no idea how to deal with this.
Sure. Yeah, they haven't been trained.
They haven't been trained.
They can't help you on something they've never been trained on. A lot of the testing resources are fairly new in the last decade or so. So there's a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, it's important to go to somebody who really understands this, who can prescribe the right testing for you, give you the data that you need, and help put together a regimen to get this stuff out of your body. Unfortunately, there are not that many educated, and you could literally spend time going to 40 different doctors and all the time and money wasted to go right back to having no answers. So
So
do
true.
yourself that favor.
So true. Thank you so much for your time today, Michael. It was such a pleasure to catch up again.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having me again, and hopefully I'll be on a third time.
Yeah, and all of the notes, I'll have everything in the show notes for the links that Michael has provided to us, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know might benefit. And always remember, when you rate, review, subscribe, you help to support my content and help me to keep going and bringing these conversations to you each and every week. Join me next week for a new topic, new guest, new exciting conversations to help you live your best life.